inside the Muppet Vision 3D theater. We're waiting for the show to start right now, and as you can see, it's kind of late at night, so there's not very many people here, making this one of the best times to come. I got my little purple 3D glasses, and I'm ready to watch the show.
That's so sweet!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dig a Little Deeper, that show where we take an attraction and dig a little deeper to learn a little more about it. Yes, that's not all we're shoveling around here on occasion. Today, our featured attraction is Muppet Vision 3D, that spectacular show at Disney's Hollywood Studios, once a Disney California adventure. And like we do every week, in addition to talking about our main attraction, we'll be talking about the Muppets elsewhere in the theme parks, like other Muppet stuff that we will get to. Don't want to do any spoilers here. So, I could have wrote it down. I didn't. Like the Muppet, like the Muppet Mobile Lab. Like, what is it? Welcome to the Muppet.
We got it.
So, before we get started, some quick introductions. My name is Doobie Mosley, co-founder of Laughing Place, co-host of this show. My wife Rebecca here is both those things as well.
Hi, I co-founded Laughing Place with Doobie, and I have had many days spent at Muppet Vision 3D when it was a favorite of our toddler son at the time. It would be a multiple visit experience. 3, 4, 5 shows in a row.
That little boy you saw at the top of the show.
I think I know what this attraction is about.
Over there, way to my left, is our Eastern, Southwest, Central Florida correspondent, Jeremiah Good.
Yeah, it is what it is.
It's a pretty small area.
Hi, guys.
And down below is, of course, the other female component of our show, Shelly.
Yay!
Everybody!
Today.
We'll find out what her hashtag phrase will be today.
I was going to say today only, but it kind of depends. We have a special guest. Jeremiah, let's all listen to your introduction.
Oh, geez. So I asked Doobie to be able to do the introduction for 2 special reasons. One, if you know this person, this will probably be the only time any of us will get a chance to talk during this show. And that's not a bad thing at all. And 2, I use this phrase every time we do one of these, is if not for this, and really, if not for this special guest, I don't think that I would be as big of a nerd as I am today. Back in 2000, 2001, he was writing on a website where he'd have multiple parts. There are still some parts that we're still waiting to finish. Really deep dives into attractions. Everything that I've spouted off over the past few weeks, and really in any shows that I've done, anything, the basis kind of comes from this person. He's probably one of the people that I've looked up to longest in the Disney community. My first media event for the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, I was lucky enough to be sat at a table with some of the Disney dignitaries, as I like to call them, and this person was sitting right next to me and treated me like he's known me forever, while he probably knew my name because I used to write stuff to him all the time. So anyway, our special guest who kind of wrote the book on Muppets, Jim Hill.
Yay!
Big applause. Applause, everybody. See me go applause.
Jeremiah, that was very sweet. Sadly, I these days I specialize in mime, so it's going to be a full hour of walking against the wind. But just anyway. So why Muppet Vision? It sounds like, Rebecca, you've suffered enough at Muppet Vision. Why revisit it now?
No suffering. It was I don't know. We had a wheel. That's what we do. We spin a wheel at the end of the show. We spin a wheel, and whatever attraction is on is the one that we're going to explore. I think the first week we talked about Casey Jr. The second week we talked about Indiana Jones Adventure, and then the wheel spun. And this week we ended up at Muppet Vision. And as we were discussing Muppets, I suggested to Doobie, hey, let's see if Jim's able to drop by and chat, because just about everything I think all us Disney dweebs know, we can trace back to Jim, and Jim sharing stories with us in person on the web, where I'm in the same position as Jeremiah. When it comes to me sharing Muppet history, chances are the annotation at the bottom of whatever I'm saying should say source Jim Hill.
That's very sweet. Well,
Jim, if I could take a moment, sorry, but could you just give a quick 30 seconds why not everyone knows who you are, which shocked me. I thought they did, but not the case. Can you just give a 30 seconds of why Jim Hill is special?
I have been writing about the Walt Disney Company for 35 plus years now, and to be fair here, the people who really plowed the road for what I did, well, one of them was Al Lutz, and the other one were you two. Doobie and Rebecca. The Laughing Place was literally what the second on-site online newsletter type of thing, right?
It was. I'd say it was one of the earliest regarding like the entire Disney company. Up until then, it'd been more dealing with.
That's right. The
theme park oriented.
Mm-hmm. No, that was half the fun. Was that you took the 30,000 foot view where. There were a number of websites. It's like they've moved the bench 5 feet. Oh my God, let's get pictures. So
okay. All right.
That's still today.
Well, we'll get started. I'd like to find out what we all think of this attraction, just really quick. So just give me, 1 to 10, quick sentence on your impression of Muppet Vision, and then we'll probably pretty much hand things over to Jim. So, Rebecca, Muppet Vision, you.
Oh, I adore it. I think it's sadly suffering from a bit of like dated, just as far as pacing and timing in the modern audience. But as far as exhibiting the joy of the Muppets, the humor, and then the actual 3D and in theater effects, I still find it quite delightful. So I put it like an 8 for me.
Jeremiah?
I love the Muppets. They've always been probably up there with Mickey Mouse. Actually, probably more than Mickey Mouse, because when I was a kid, Muppets was the hottest thing. I would say I can still go in there and enjoy it. So it's definitely a 9.
No, just like my son. Shelley.
I'm going to say 8.5 because this is honestly one of my must-dos when I go to Hollywood Studios. I love the Muppets and I love everything about it. I agree with Becca. It is suffering a little bit from being dated as far as the pacing and some of the elements and special effects go. But there's nothing like standing in the pre-show and like reading all the funny gags and remembering like why you love the Muppets so much.
Yeah, I would agree. One of the special things about the Muppets is it's made, at least 2 points higher. Maybe it's a 6, but it may go up to a 9 because of the pre-show. The pre-show is amazing. And if you're going to the park and you're skipping the pre-show, figuring that's not the main attraction, you're making a big mistake. See the entire pre-show. It's incredible. Before I pass it on to Jim to give his opinion and take us through a little bit of the history of the Muppets, which opened in 1991 at Hollywood Studios, 2001 at DCA. I did want to say, if anyone has any questions for Jim, we don't often get this opportunity to talk to someone of this stature, please put them in the comments and we'll make sure to see if we can get a few seconds out of him for you. So please.
You didn't know it was going to be a love fest, did you?
I was about to say stature. It's a limbo contest. We're going very low tonight with the stature.
So Jim, your Muppet impressions, and then
what I love about Muppet Vision, and right from the get-go, was the crazy level of detail. In fact, I'm sure, Rebecca, during your 5th time watching it one day, you're looking around the theater trying to find no things to watch. And it's like, what I love about the show, for example, is the penguins are watching the movie. In fact, they're commenting on the action, pointing up, and it's crazy levels of detail. And for me, half the fun is I keep tripping over news stories related to this. Like just recently, I've begun corresponding with the Imagineer who actually helped fabricate the penguins. Oh. And he talked about building this entire orchestra of penguins. And what was kind of interesting is they built Orlando and Anaheim's figures all at the same time. and they were going to go into great moments with Mr. Lincoln. In fact, if you watch the film today, you know how at the end you see the ladder truck push in, and if you look beyond the ladder truck, there's a gazebo. Well, the idea was that that would make it look like you were looking out on Hollywood Boulevard, or excuse me, you were looking out on Main Street Plaza. And, you know, so the idea is it would fit both the studio and Disneyland. In fact, supposedly the gazebo is the gazebo from Something Wicked This Way Comes, when they shot it on Soundstage 3. You know, that was the image they used, or, you know, that was the prop they hold into place. But anyway, they fabricate all of these figures. And the plan is that the attraction's going to open in 1991 at both Disneyland and Disney MGM Studios. And, you know, they are literally, and in fact, I got this from Mark Eads, they're literally inside the Lincoln Theater measuring sconces. And, you know, it's just like, okay, so when we shut this attraction down on August 26th, we can then hit the ground running. And it's the Orange County Register that breaks the story, I want to say a week earlier. And it's like, hey, Mr. Lincoln is moving, you know, being chased out by a bunch of Muppets. And Orange County conservatives lose their minds and, you know, call Disney and send angry letters. And by August 24th, just 2 days before the attraction's supposed to close forever, Disneyland blinks. And it's like, okay, Muppets isn't going into Lincoln. It's going to go someplace else. In fact, the someplace else it was supposed to go was Mickey's Toontown. In fact, I sent some art to Doobie.
Pull that up. Yes,
But yeah, this is, I want to say this is Don Carson's work. He did a lot of the stuff for Mickey's Toontown. And the idea was that in the urban section of Mickey's Toontown, they were then going to shoehorn in a theater. Now, mind you, we're talking late summer, early fall of 1990. And this was also during the time when they were going to be shoehorning in a Little Mermaid ride. You know, so it was an interesting time for Disney. But yeah, I mean, for me, you know, you can't really tell the story of Muppet Vision at Disney without talking about that first botched attempt to acquire the Muppets back in summer of 1989. You know, I mean, it's important to remember that Michael Eisner was a Muppet fan. I mean, he loved Jim Henson. He got the world of the guy. In fact, the very first two pilots for the Muppet Show were made at ABC. In fact, first one was called the Muppet Valentine's Special, aired in February of '74. And then the second one was March of the following year, was called Muppet Sex and Violence. And that was deliberately done because the Muppets were in this weird space at that point. Sesame Street had just come on in 1969. And suddenly Henson, who had been, I mean, he'd been on adult television for years. Yep, that's from the press conference. But yeah, that he had been on, you know, the Muppets appeared on the Jack Parr Show and the Jimmy Dean Show and Ed Sullivan. And it was only after they began appearing on Sesame Street that suddenly they ended up in sort of the kid ghetto, and they couldn't get out. And so Michael Eisner was hearing his friend Jim Henson complain about this. So Michael, at this point, is the head of development at ABC Television. And what Michael does is he actually siphons money off of the budget for Saturday morning cartoon development and gives it to Jim to do these pilots. And so, you know, these two shows were basically, in fact, we didn't get the Muppet Show that debuted in '76. We wouldn't have that show if Michael hadn't basically done a little bookkeeping magic. And I think the Saturday morning lineup in, '71, '72 probably, didn't benefit from that. But yeah, Michael couldn't close the deal though. He couldn't persuade ABC to make the show. And so what ends up happening is Sir Lou Grade shows up. He suggests they do as a syndicated show. It's the right show at the right time because ABC, because the FCC has just rammed through this new rule that gives local TV stations back a half-hour broadcast time. They got 7:30 to 8 o'clock every night back, and then so they could sell it for advertising. So in this weird window of time, they needed shows, and Henson was the right show at the right time, and that's why Muppets took off. Conversely, though, the reason Jim Henson was of a mind to sell to Disney was that, do you remember a really, really short-lived Henson show called the Jim Henson Hour?
I love that.
Yeah. Well, you were the one. It got terrible ratings, and more to the point, Jim made 12 episodes, and NBC only aired 9. And in fact, in a desperate attempt to sort of keep the show on the air, for one night only, they moved it into the old Disney Wonderful World of Color spot on Sunday night to see if that would make a difference. Because it was airing on Friday nights up against what the very next year became known on ABC as TJIF, Thank Goodness It's Funny. And it was hammering up against that and hammering up against the second season of Beauty and the Beast. And there was just no oxygen. The show died.
Hey, Jim, you talking about the kind of the disappointing performance of that. I have found that there seems to be a struggle since the 70s to figure out what to do in many ways with the Muppets. Do you have any, kind of entertainment journalist insight as to, what you see as the dilemma? How come it doesn't seem to score in this? They did with the Muppets that was with the film with
the first Muppet film.
One.
Right.
Well, yeah, but it's interesting you say that. Yeah, the first Muppet movie in '79, it only cost $8 million to make. It makes $76 million worldwide. But then it's literally like a set of stairs. The next Muppet movie, the Great Muppet Caper, it costs $14 million to make, but it only makes $31 million in ticket sales. And and it's a set of stairs. And never mind what happened with Labyrinth and Dark Crystal, which I know are beloved epic fantasies today.
Right.
Bombed at the box office.
Right.
Just it was when Labyrinth particularly failed, and that one, that's Jim Henson partnered with George Lucas and David Bowie, and people forget that the script for that was written by Terry Jones from Monty Python. And so you had this entire A-team, and the fact that nobody showed up. It's just sort of like, I'll wait for cable, and this is the thing. Jim Henson was in the darkest place of his career after Labyrinth failed at the box office. In fact, that's why he went back to television. That's why he did the Jim Henson Hour. And then to have that bomb and it's like literally your name is on the side of the Hindenburg as it goes down. It's the Jim Henson Hour, and you're not willing to spend an hour with me.
I'm really surprised at Tom. That looked like a really superior movie.
Well, it's got wonderful design, but the weird part of it is that. In fact, what's kind of ironic is when Michael Eisner reaches out to Jim Henson in the summer of '89, he's like, "Look, you created a hit series. NBC dropped the ball. They should have promoted it better." And in fact, he then doubled down and said, "Look, it's the same thing with Labyrinth. If Disney had that film, if we'd put our marketing might behind it, if we'd had a presence in the parks, that sort of thing." You would have had a hit film. And then, Michael goes in for the kill. And it's just the effect like, look, you spend so much of your time in meetings and deciding, what gets made, which toys get made, or, it's like you're a creator. You should be creating. Come here, let us buy Henson Associates for $150 million, and we'll sign you to a 15-year exclusive contract. And the gimmick is that all you have to do is create, and you'll have the might of the Disney company behind you. And the thing that what was great about this is Jim Henson was this huge Disney nerd. I mean, he loved Henson. In fact, there's this great story. In the 5th season of the show, Wally Bogue actually appears on the Muppet Show. And you got to understand, this is the same year where it's Paul Simon and Roger Moore and Gene Kelly and Wally Bogue. And it's one of these things where it's like, it's one of these things is not like the other. But the difference is that Jim Henson loved Wally Bogue, that when he'd go to the park, that it was, I got to go to the Golden Horseshoe. I got to watch Wally Bogue fold balloons. But it also turns out that, that Steve Martin loved Wally Bogue. That, right. And in fact, Steve Martin so loved Wally Bogue that when his career took off, he thought of Wally as his mentor. And so he would invite Wally to everything. So it's September of 1978, and it's the Steve Martin concert at the Universal Amphitheater, where the opening act is the Blues Brothers. And it's everyone who's anyone in entertainment wants to be there. And so here's Wally and his wife Ellen, and there we go. And they've been in, they see the show, they have seats right down front, they get invited backstage, and it's this crowded, crazy party scene. And as Wally told me, they're decades older than everybody in the room, and it's like, okay, we put in our appearance, let's get out of here. And so they go over and thank Steve for the tickets, and they're walking out of the room, and Wally bumps into this guy with a beard, and the guy with the beard turns around and gets, his eyes get big, and it's like, you're Wally Bogue, and it's like, yes, and it's like, you have to be on my show, and it's like, I have no idea who this man is. but okay, I'll be on your show. Slowly backing out of the room away from the crazy guy. We'll call you. And it's like, okay, we'll call you. And the very next day, this is a Friday, and Wally gets a call from his agent on Saturday, and it's like, you just booked the Muppet Show. And it's like, how? It's like, I don't know. I thought you would be able to tell me. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that when I guess this was the 3rd season of the show, they didn't get Wally actually on the show to the 5th season. They fly him over to London. They stay at this wonderful posh hotel. It's only when Wally walks on the set, it's like, oh, the bearded guy from the party.
So why didn't the deal happen?
Yeah. But no, I mean, it just that so he knew Eisner knew that Jim Henson was a Disney nut. And so he knew to lay this down on the table where effectively it's like, look, I'm offering you Walt Disney's job. All right. I'll run the interference. Frank and I'll do the money. And yeah, you'll have to deal with Katzenberg, and that did turn out to be an issue. But yeah, September of 1989. This gets announced, and I think the New York Times called it a marriage made in family entertainment heaven. And everyone was thrilled. It's just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens here. But here's the thing: it was a handshake deal. It was just literally, look, I'm the guy who stole money from ABC to make your 2 pilots for the Muppet Show. Trust me. All right, and now we've agreed to do this, and now let's get Disney's lawyers involved. I'll take you over to the White Shark Tank. And that's where it started to go south. So
what year was that again?
This was 1989, and so it's September of '89. They hit the ground running. They start talking with the television side of things. They get a new series going, a couple of new series going for the Disney Channel. They got Jim Henson's Muppet Goose Stories. They also shot a pilot for a show called Little Mermaid's Island, where they in fact, what's interesting is you can go on YouTube right now and watch this. The pilot somehow snuck out. But and it just, but that's the other part of this story that's kind of unfortunate. Michael Eisner makes this deal because he has no idea what's coming over the hill. He has no idea that, in November that year, The Little Mermaid is going to hit big. More to the point that it's going to be the first real film of the launch of the second golden age of Disney animation. And, let's be honest here. One of the reasons Michael made the deal for the Muppets is he needed characters. The only new character they had added to the pile that was of any value since Eisner came through the door in September of '84 was Roger Rabbit. And again, right off the bat, that was problematic because that was co-owned with Spielberg. So he needed characters for the parks. He needed characters. He needed content for his cable channel and the like. And so and the Imagineers just describe how they loved working with Jim because they had just spent all of this miserable time working with Francis Ford Coppola and Michael Jackson on Captain EO. And it was like, just you with the little Imagineer thing, stand in the corner. We know what we're doing. We're big show business people. And Jim Henson was the exact opposite. It was just sort of like, what do I need to do here? You guys are the experts on parks. What should I be doing? And, how can we have fun? And the 3D movie came right off the bat because, it's just the whole notion of, what do the Muppets do? What the Muppets do best is make fun of things. And so it's like, so let's do a 3D movie where we make fun of 3D movies. And it's just the whole notion of every horrible 3D gag that you've ever seen in a 3D movie, those are in the pile automatically. And then, but then it's like, well, how can we top that? And it's the physical stuff of the cannon blast. In fact, it kind of, for me, don't get me wrong, I love the gag in the queue for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in the pre-show, but I liked it better when I saw it the first time in Muppet Vision. But anyway, and they get the Muppets into the park relatively quickly. By January of 1990, there's a show called Hollywood that used to be presented in the old Hollywood Bowl, the version that was at the mouth of where you go into Sunset Boulevard now.
Okay.
They actually created a new 10-minute long bit where where the show traditionally ended, suddenly Kermit came on stage and did a little song and dance, and then the doors to the side of the stage opened and Miss Piggy made this grand entrance riding in a pink Cadillac and came up on stage and did a number. And they did that just for a couple of weeks till the Here Comes the Muppet Show was ready to get up out of the ground. And I don't know.
And that featured. Dude, I'm
Yep. This is, in fact, this went into where The Little Mermaid is today, or was today.
It's still there, Jim.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't bet long money on that. But yeah, okay. So it's about this time they begin to lock in. They're shooting Muppet Vision in February of 1990 on the Disneyland lot. They are locking in. Jim is also shooting the pilot for The Little Mermaid's Island. And they're beginning to lock in plans for how they're going to bring the Muppets into the park. And look, we know how they did it in Florida, but it's the California version that really kind of breaks my heart. Because, in fact, Kevin Kidney over at the wonderful site that he keeps going with Jody Daly, actually shared then Disneyland President Jack Lindquist's plan for how the Muppets were going to come into Disneyland in the summer of 1991. Basically, what was going to happen is there was going to be this series of ads in the Los Angeles Times, full-page ads, and basically it's Mickey talking about, oh, I'm exhausted after Disneyland's 35th anniversary and I really need a break. And Kermit's like, well, we could cover for you. And the idea was that there was going to be a ceremony, or photo op in front of the Main Street train station where it's basically Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto hand the keys of the Disneyland off to Kermit and Miss Piggy. And it's like, we're going off for the summer on vacation, to try not to burn down the place. And, and then it was kind of a twofer because they were going to legitimately send the Fab Five around to, they were going to go to the Grand Canyon. They were going to go to the Arch in St. Louis. They were going to go to Boston. You get a lot of publicity out of that. But at the same time, the Muppets are running Disneyland. And so, for starters, as you pulled up to Disneyland, there was a bed sheet thrown over the marquee. All right. And basically, you saw this hand-painted version of Muppet Land. All right. And then you come up to the train station, and the Mickey planter is gone. And in its place is Kermit's face. Then from there, and again, the idea was that the Muppet Vision 3D would be playing inside of the Lincoln Theater, but during the day, the Muppet All-Star Motorcade would roll up Main Street. And, so, and the weird thing is this, you've seen this parade. It wound up in MGM as the Dinosaurs Live show, because they built the floats, but the deal fell through at that point. And then the part that Jody, feel like, were we really going to do this? They talked about they were either going to actually paint it, or what they were going to do at night was they were going to use strong spotlights, but they were going to basically color the Matterhorn Kermit green, or in one case, I've heard that they were going to call it Miss Piggy Pink. But yeah, I mean, it would have been amazing. But anyway, okay, so here's the tough part. They do a television special. They shoot that in April. In fact, there's this great story about how Jim Henson they're sitting on Hollywood Boulevard waiting for a shot to get set up. And somebody has a copy of Vanity Fair magazine, and they have a "How long will you live?" quiz, and Jim does the quiz, and it's like, oh, cool! I'll live to be 90. That's great. And this TV special, the shots that you show there, that airs on May 13th, Mother's Day. In fact, that's one of the reasons why you see Fozzie and his mother, and more to the point, why you see Fozzie and his mother at the Grand Floridian, because it's the newest resort. Just sort of plug. But yeah, 3 days later, Jim Henson dies of bacterial pneumonia. And this part is tough. I got this story from Steve Whitmire. He's the voice of, or was the voice of Kermit from when we lost Jim up till 2017. Steve, and the thing is, Jim had a cold that wouldn't go away, and Jim was raised as a Christian Scientist. So it was one of these things where it's like, you don't go to the hospital for, minor stuff. I'll tough it out. And it was only when he began to really spin in that the family convinced him, okay, we need to take you to the hospital. We need to take you to the hospital now. And so they go downstairs, and they're in New York City. They get in a cab, and it tells you a lot about who Jim Henson was as a person. The cab accidentally takes them around to the entrance of the hospital that's closed at midnight. And again, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and the guy cabbie's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I can drive around the front. And Jim's, no bother, we'll walk. And so he and his daughter, as sick as he was, they walk around to the emergency room, and it's only then that they begin to realize how serious what they're dealing with is. And anyway, Steve's down in Atlanta. He gets a call from the Henson kids, and it's like, you need to get up here. Dad's dying. And Steve gets in his Testarossa and drives like crazy to the airport, gets the last flight up to New York, and goes up to, they've got Jim in a private suite, and it's all of the Muppeteers that he's, there's a sort of a little waiting room outside of the actual room with the bed's in, and they're all in there talking, and suddenly things go south, and the family gets chased out of the room with Jim, and so they end up in the little room, and all the Muppeteers end up pushed out in the hallway, and they watch all the doctors run in, and they watch them do their heroic efforts, and just from the body language, they know it's over. We've lost Jim, and everyone's shell shocked. They're standing in the hallway. It's like, oh my God, we just lost Jim, and at this exact moment, two nurses pushing a gurney come around the corner. And on it is this little Chinese woman who's just come out of surgery. And evidently the way she's reacting to the anesthesia is she's laughing hysterically and sort of speaking in garbled language. And the nurses are just losing it because she sounds so ridiculous. And they're laughing hysterically. But they push her, this little Chinese woman, yammering on the gurney, up the corridor and go around the corner. And Frank Oz turns to everybody else in the hallway and said, Jim did that. At the moment we needed things to be ridiculous, Jim did that. And, but what Jim didn't do is write a will. And the new, yes, that shot always got me. And the thing is, Henson Associates was based in New York State, and the estate taxes were going to be crippling. The $150 million that was, and the thing is, Jim was going to spread the $150 million to Frank Oz, to Steve Whitmire, to Richard Hunt, to the guys who he'd worked with forever. And, it was the notion of who earned it. It's our big payday. But now all of that's going south. And then the kicker is, in the middle of all of this that's going on, because now it's time to do, Jim's memorial service. Disney still has to launch the Here Comes the Muppet Show at Disney MGM. And that, for some reason, the fact that they wouldn't wait kind of ticks off the Henson family, and it all starts to snowball downhill from there. By June, you can actually see the very first stories kind of bubble up that, is this deal going to go forward? Disney is trying to be, as fair as they can possibly be. But the hard reality is the big thing, at least as far as Michael Eisner was concerned, about getting Jim Henson was what he was going to create, the movies he was going to make for Disney, the TV shows, the specials, all the characters that Disney was going to get over his 15-year exclusive deal. And now Jim is gone. So it's like, okay, so do we still pay the $150 million?
Right.
And the other thing is, if we're going to pay $150 million, we should probably get a little more for that. And when I say a little more, that means the Sesame Street characters are now on the table. And that was the only condition Jim set out of the entire acquisition deal. It's like, look, I'll agree to everything, but Sesame Street is off the table. I co-own that with Children's Television Workshop. The money that they make off of, the sale of plush and toys and that sort of thing, that funds not only the production of Sesame Street, but all the other shows that Children's Television Workshop works on. But it's like, you can't have that. And Disney's attorneys were, it's like, well, if we can't have that, I don't think everything else you piled up previously is now worth $150 million. And the weird thing is, it's like you can watch now the TV special that they put together, the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson. In fact, if you watch the tail end of that show, that's the very first time that Steve Whitmire does Kermit, for the public. In fact, another great story from Steve, he was telling me about, they're getting ready to shoot this show. And so, it's like, okay, so we should probably send you the Kermit puppet. And so one day UPS shows up at the house and here's a box and open up the Kermit puppet and Steve lifts it up. And the thing is, when you do puppeteering, you work really closely with guys. And he picked up Kermit and it's like, he could smell Jim. And it's like, he just put it down, put it in the box and had to walk away. It's just like, I can't do this. And it took a couple of days before he could pick up the puppet, start working with it again, but he just couldn't find Kermit. And to give you some idea of what a great guy Frank Oz is, what Frank does is he says, okay, come with me. Okay, we're going to go into that rehearsal hall over there. And what he does is he puts on Miss Piggy. And it's like, okay, Kermit, talk to me. And that's the thing. Steve couldn't do Kermit by himself, but when he had Piggy to bounce off of, it's like, I found Kermit, I found the voice, I found the way into the character. But you realize we're a family, and I needed another member of the family to be able to do this. But anyway, it's that show airs November 21st, 1990. And then December 13th, 1990, the deal's off. And the story I've always heard that gives you some idea of how ruthless Disney's lawyers could be. Supposedly it's a Friday, they fly the family out from New York. It's like, look, we got to resolve this contract. We're coming down to the end of, end of the year. It's a tax situation. We need to get this resolved. And what they end up doing is they fly the whole family out and they put them basically in a trailer to the back of the Disney lot, and they keep them there for hours. The idea is it's like, okay, we'll wear them down there, eventually make this deal. And what ends up happening is the lawyer, the lead lawyer in this totally miscalculates. He keeps them isolated till now. And again, it's Los Angeles, it's December, it gets dark very early. And he goes in, it's like, okay, so you're going to sign the deal or not? And it's like, well, we'd like to review this with the attorney. He's like, no. And he storms out of the room and leaves them there. And they're at the back of the lot on the Disney lot in Burbank on a Friday afternoon. And it's like, the place is closed. The lights are off. There's nobody there. And they have to literally walk from the back of the lot by themselves out to the guard shack. And it's like, can you call us a cab? And can you also get us a phone, because we need to call our attorneys and cancel this deal, because if this is the way Disney is going to treat us, we don't want to work with them. But here's the problem. It's they're already working on the Dinosaurs TV show. They've already committed to shooting A Christmas Carol over in London, and that's going to be Disney's big release for the Christmas of 1992. Let alone that there's steel and bricks going up at Disney MGM to the Muppet Vision 3 theater. And, for a while, nobody quite knows what's going to happen. In fact, Susan Berry, who was a spokesman for Muppets, was like, well, I'm not entirely sure the Muppets can continue to even appear in the Disney parks, let alone that there can be this movie. And anyway, Dinosaurs debuts on ABC April 16th, 1991. 2 days later, the Henson Company sues Disney for copyright infringement. And it's kind of payback for the, keeping us in the dark in December on the lot on a Friday, because they know that 11 days from now is when the press preview for Muppet Vision 3D is supposed to begin. And so it's like, okay, here's the deal. All right, you want to jerk us around? Welcome to being jerked around. And they eventually cut a deal that will allow Muppet Vision 3D to be shown east of the Mississippi. And in fact, a large part of why that happened is that Brian Henson, when the family was trying to decide whether or not to allow the show to go forward, went into the theater in Florida by himself, and they fired up the show. And when they brought up the lights, he was in tears. And it's like, this is the last thing my dad worked on. I can't not let the world see this. Though, to be fair, poor Frank Oz, well, Shelley was just talking about how much she loved the pre-show. That's Frank. Frank was the one who, again, in the wreckage that happened after Jim died and trying to sort out who did what. Poor Frank was the guy who had to come in and shoot that pre-show that's on the 3 different monitors and make it all work and make it light and it's funny when his heart was breaking. But anyway, all right. So we get Muppet Vision opens May 16th, 1991. Jerry Van Dyke is there to cut the ribbon. And I'm told what made it particularly memorable is in Fozzie Bear tradition, there was a shower of ping pong balls as, the attraction opened. But again, remember, from talking to that Imagineer, there's a warehouse full of penguins and an additional set of Statler and Waldorfs and Bean Bunnies because they built 2 of them. One's got to be eventually open in Anaheim. And that was a later negotiation. What was kind of interesting is this was also during the same period where things had gotten better between Disney and Henson. I mean, for example, at this point, Henson had cut a deal with Disney to put out Jim Henson home video. You probably saw a lot of, or saw a number of those titles come out through the Walt Disney Home Entertainment. But this was also during the same window of time when they're working on Disney's America, and they were supposed to do an attraction that was set on Ellis Island that told the story of immigration. And the idea was that the Muppets it was going to be another 3D movie, with the Muppets telling the story of immigration.
Funny topic right there.
Yeah, well, but that's the thing. The Muppets had a gift for making unusual things funny. I mean, now mind you, most of the time they got to laugh because they blew stuff up or somebody ate somebody else. Anyway, the one thing I did want to bring up, and it's kind of the great Muppet attraction that we never got, but that all of us remember Superstar Limo. I know, Doobie and Rebecca, you were there for opening day, and
amazing.
I was, and didn't that closed within like a year, right? Okay. You got to remember that Disney eventually does manage to acquire the Muppets in 2004. Now, mind you, at that point, their price had dropped considerably. I've been told that Disney got all of the Muppets that we know today, plus the Bear in the Big Blue House, for $35 million. So almost just a fifth of what they were initially going to pay back in 1990. But the notion was that, we have this attraction we closed in 2002, and what could we do with it? And so, again, Jack Linquist, the folks at Disneyland love full page ads. And so the idea was that, you pick a banner headline. Okay, we admit it. Superstar Limo was a terrible attraction. But we've decided we're going to do something about it. In fact, we put our 2 best men on it. And at the bottom of the ad were Beaker and Dr. Bunsen Honeydew. And just the whole notion was it was then going to become Miss Piggy's Superstar Limo. And in kind of the tradition of Buzz Lightyear, Space Ranger spin, they're going to keep the vehicle, they're going to keep the track in place, and they were going to flatten every set in the building and then just build up around it. And it was going to be Miss Piggy. You were her assistant, supposedly rushing to get her latte to her. And Muppet craziness ensued. But again, that you have to understand that Disney serves many masters, and at that time, John Lasseter was like, "Yeah, that's nice, but did you see this Monsters Inc. movie over here?" Which, by the way, there's a lot of folks at Henson who, are well. First of all, they're not entirely enthusiastic about, say, Toy Story, with the whole Toy Story or character or the storyline of toys fighting to be the kid's top toy, because that was the storyline of a Henson special called The Christmas Toy in the mid-'80s. Likewise, there's a feeling at Henson that Monsters, Inc. is the best Muppet movie that they never made. So kind of some tension between those two divisions of the company. But yeah, we got instead Monsters, Inc.'s Mike and Sully to the rescue. And I've been talking for 50 minutes straight now, so I'm going to shut the hell up. So.
No, there's nothing. I'm sorry, but there's nothing better than story time with Jim. I enjoy it a lot. Hearing all about the Muppets, and you weave a wonderful tale when you tell us this history.
So
that's
Jim,
very sweet of you. There's others who say I shovel it a little high, but you know.
Jim, you are the most spectacular person I've ever met. But we have a lot of pictures from the making of Muppet Vision. I'm just curious, do you have any stories to go along with those you might be able to talk about while I show some pictures? Or if not, that's fine. But
yeah, I mean, sure, throw them up. Let's take a look.
Jim may have a story or two.
Jim shares his stories. I want to hear from Jeremiah. What's your favorite gag when you in Muppet Vision 3D? What's like that moment that you wait for?
Mine is truly the Swedish chef with the cannon. Like, I think because it's such a change. Everybody's so used to looking at the screen. Nobody ever turns to look at this chef in the projection booth. So you don't see him when he pops up originally. You don't see him with a gun. But when the cannon comes out, like, I make a point to almost stand up to turn around to try to get people to look, because it's so unique. And it is, just like Jim said, that is the Runaway Railway moment. The explosion, the entire theater goes, and you get that fun moment of, wow, did that really just happen?
How about you, Shelley? What's your moment you wait for?
So growing up, Miss Piggy was my lady. Like, I had the curtains, the bedspread, the shams, like everything. And so when it's her number and like the jet ski, the boat takes off and she's skiing and she like flies backwards, my favorite part.
Oh, epic.
So, do you like the part where her head flies off, or that you see her underwear?
Really, Jeremiah?
Just asking.
I didn't have that one. I had the one where she's like in the white gown. And
I had a Miss Piggy lunchbox when I was in elementary. It was bright. It was bright yellow, and she was riding on a motorcycle, and she was in like this total glittery Evel Knievel style outfit on board the motorcycle. And that's the one I had for school.
I had posters up on the wall. Like, it was bad. Like, yes, Dustin. Yes, it's so much fun.
my favorite gag is in the pre-show, and it's really, he's here, ladies and gentlemen. Mickey Mouse. How you doing? Hello. That's so great.
What about you, Jim? What's your favorite gag?
Well, no, Doobie's actually hit upon one of the reasons Michael Eisner really wanted to bring the Muppets in to Disney. The fact that they could do that, they could make fun of the Muppet the classic Disney characters, and you know the notion was that we were going to finally have some edge. We were finally going to have some fun. And to what Shelley was talking about, the water skiing finale. What's kind of intriguing about that is where she water skis in is the trench in stage 3 where the squid and Captain Nemo fought. That's the same. Again, that's they also, by the way, they used the same stage for what was it? Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, when they did the big cavern underwater, or the water-filled cavern. So
Jim, I'm going to show some of these pictures. You don't necessarily have to talk about the pictures, but maybe you can. Something I've always been curious about. The Muppets are a bunch of incredible characters, and so they create Muppet Vision 3D, and they decide to bring a brand new character that is not exactly loved. Maybe you can talk about that as I flip through here, as well as anything else that strikes you.
Okay, so you can see right there, to the right there, those are the sets for Something Wicked This Way Comes. So this is them. In fact, that's them rigging the blowing the hole in the side of the theater illusion. And let's see.
Do you know was it a Henson side decision or a Disney side decision to bring about Waldo? Do you know?
Well, Waldo was actually created for the Jim Henson Hour. In fact, the wall. In fact, kind of ticked off the folks at NBC because from what I understand, just to get the little bit of animation they used in the show, it was $200,000. And again, this was 1988 CG. Hugely expensive, all wireframe, not great. But yeah, oh god. But that's Richard Hunt. Bean Bunny, by the way, another character that was introduced in the Jim Henson Hour. They did a standalone special called The Great Bunny Picnic. But the running gag on the Jim Henson show was Bean Bunny was cute, so that meant the rest of the Muppets didn't have to be on that show. And he would always talk about lined up another licensing deal. By the way, this is Dave Goles here doing Gonzo, and I want to talk for a second about when you're a puppeteer, you have weird on-the-job issues. Like poor Dave, after years of performing Gonzo like that with one arm up over his shoulder, actually had to have surgery on his shoulder, just to sort of stabilize issues there. In fact, these days, Dave basically does Gonzo's voice. Doesn't really puppeteer him as much as he used to. And in fact, I don't need to tell you guys, the other place you can hear Dave's voice is as Figment in Journey into Imagination at Epcot. So,
didn't need to tell me that.
That's news to me.
I love these guys. I love the what is it? The glorious 3.5-hour finale. And there's evidently there's an outtake of this where when the explosion goes off, Richard Hunt puppet is in front of one of the cannons and it blows off his arm. And then Richard goes on to stage this amazing on-camera death scene that made everybody laugh so hard. For 45 minutes, they had to shut down production because nobody could keep a straight face at that point.
So these are my favorite characters in the actual show. The guys with the round faces and the round nose. I don't know. They crack me up. I don't know if they have a name. I have no idea.
No, they don't. Though note the arrow, which, by the way, in fact, this was the time when I realized that things are maybe a little different between Disney's California Adventure and Disney MGM, and that was when I was out in 2001 for the opening of the show, and I noticed that when they shot into the Statler and Waldorf's balcony, there was no arrow. I mean, in Florida, the arrow actually, it comes out. And in fact, I don't know, Rebecca, I have to assume with Gideon, he stalled a bunch of times to watch the show reset. So that's the thing. You could watch the arrow literally go back into the balcony. You could watch, all of the explosions suddenly disappears. They change the lighting from the front to the back. It's an amazing take-in. If you haven't ever done that with Muppet Vision, stroll, lose your wallet. Be in there when they reset the theater. It's quite a thing to say.
So, question from the audience, Jim. You don't have a crystal ball, but surely you have opinions.
This kind of brings to mind what Shelley was talking about. Look, Muppet Vision is a wonderful show, but we don't have, the modern American attention span. The show really does run too long. But the question is, do you do a country bear? Do you shave off 5 minutes? And if you do, where do you? I almost would love the new folks who are in charge of the Muppets to do a run at doing a new version of the 3D movie, largely because right now so many of the Muppets are performed by new folks who the voices sound just a little bit different. And again, by the way, I don't know if any of you are Family Guy fans, but there's that wonderful Family Guy gag where it's like, this is how we end up with wrong sounding Muppets, and it's the Swedish chef, how you doing, guy? So, but that's the thing. I almost wish they could do that, but at the same time, how many of you have seen Muppets Now? And look at the yep, there we go. Okay, so look. Here's the hard reality. If you watch the first season of the original Muppet Show from '75, it's pretty shaky. It's only in season 2 they start to hit their stride. In fact, that's the thing that kind of makes me crazy about the Muppet Show that they did on ABC in 2015. It was only in like the last 2 episodes they finally hit their stride. And it's like, okay, that's going to be an interesting show in season 2. And ABC canceled it. And the thing that made the folks at Muppet Studio crazy is they had a deal lined up with Netflix, a guarantee of 2 seasons for that show. And ABC threw a fit. It's like, what are we, chopped liver? I mean, we're ABC. We're Disney's, come on. We should be first in line. Netflix should not have the right to have the Muppet Show. Give it to us, and we'll treat it like a crown jewel. And, it starts airing in December, and they pull it off the air in November for retooling. So much for crown jewels.
We have another question. Seems right up your alley.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a Muppet parody of the Great Movie Ride?
Oh,
we don't have another 2 hours.
Well, all right, this will do the concise version of. This is real. This is legit. In fact, yes, this is the piece of art for the Disney parody scene in the attraction. If you first of all notice there, bottom left in a tipped over director's chair. That's the great Gonzo. He was the narrator and director of this film. This was the scene in the attraction where they made fun of Peter Pan. Mm-hmm. So you can see, for example, Miss Piggy dressed as Tinkerbell, and you've got Fozzie Bear, I want to say as Michael, Scooter as John. What is it? Kermit. Kermit is Peter Pan. And why am I blanking her name? Janice. Janice is Wendy. But the thing you can't see here is that from this piece of art, Tinkerbell has smashed through the backdrop. And if you follow the line there, you have a rat, an animal, another rat, and then pulling the end of the line is Sweetums. So they need that many people to control Miss Piggy as she flies through the air. And let's see, we got the horror movie one there.
Yeah, we'll bring that one over too.
Okay, this one again, this is a classic Universal horror movie. We have, if you have entering the lab and trying to stop the Mad Doctor is on the left. You've got Kermit and Piggy. The monster, and this is a 10-foot tall version of Beaker, but again, Frankenstein monster green. You've got Dr. Bunsen to do working the levers, and as you notice, center right, you've got the great Gonzo again directing the scene. You've got Animal working the camera, and what I love about this is if you look at the generator, it's rats running on a wheel. They're the ones who are powering the lightning effect in the scene. But the kicker is poor Fozzie Bear is the electrician, and has the rats run on the wheel, they power up, and now Fozzie's bear, its fur stands on end, his eyes light up, and wah, wah, wah. It's just what a wonderful gag. Sadly, I've been looking for it, and I know I have it somewhere. I couldn't chase it down, but the finale of this attraction was you come around a corner, and suddenly you're on the biggest soundstage that Disney's ever done for the theme park, and it's an epic space battle between the USS Swine Trek and a group of space pirates, and again, rats that are pirates.
Right.
So now so you drive between these two vehicles in your theater car as lasers are flying overhead and Piggy's flying overhead along with Link Hogthrob and Dr. Julius Strangepork, I believe his name is.
Yes.
But the kicker gag of this is the entire time you're on this attraction, Statler and Waldorf are chasing you in a golf cart, and they occasionally pull up next to you and would just sort of heckle you or comment on the scene or that sort of thing. And in this final scene, they have somehow been hit by a stray laser. So as you come around the corner, there's their golf cart split right down the middle. And the only way it's being held together is Statler and Waldorf are reaching to each other like, it was, a wonderful attraction. This was the thing that Jim was most excited about, largely because in his eyes, the Muppets were the perfect characters to do audio animatronics with. Because, just audio animatronics are basically puppets anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, the notion that, we could do this attraction, but I think the one gag, and again, just to give you a taste of how it was supposed to start, this movie was totally a parody of the Great Movie Ride. In fact, that's, to me, was the amazing part was, you go a quarter of a mile to the left, just beyond, the Muppet Studios area, and here was going to be the Great Movie Ride again, only, with the outside of the building clearly slapped together, paint had just dried. And so it's the same thing. It's the introductory scene that you had in the Great Movie Ride. Remember how you'd go into the lobby and there'd be that scene where they held you and they showed you all these great movie clips. It's all of these great movie clips with the Muppets. But you're in the theater car, and as you begin, Gonzo comes out on an arm and talks to you. It's like, you wonder how this scene was done, and you see it's Dr. Zhivago. And it's Miss Piggy and Kermit in a sled, dressed in heavy Russian garb, and there's snow flying in their faces. He says, well, let me show you. And you dip under the screen, and what you see is a giant snow globe. And Kermit and Piggy are inside of the snow globe, now floating around in between takes, as four giant monsters are at the corner shaking the snow globe to make the snow go around. And the genuinely terrible part about this is if you went on the tram tour, there was a summer where you drove by the construction site. There was a sign up that said Muppet coming soon, Muppet Studios in 1991. And you had, little Kermit's nephew Robin sitting on the fence wearing a construction helmet. And then sort of looming up over the fence, you had Sweetums with his own construction helmet on. And that stayed up for at least a year after the deal went south. And then the last time I saw anything there, they had the cow from City Slickers out there eating grass. They pulled down the wall, and we lost the Muppet Great Movie Ride, and we got a cow. Which, just shy of getting a handful of magic beans. I can't think of a better deal.
So, Jim, since we kind of moved out of the Muppets 3, that was that entire courtyard that's around the Muppet Vision, and that leads into Mama Melrose and the Christmas shop. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Well, again, if we can go back to the
I think I heard Jeremiah. I think, Jeremiah, you should tell it, and then Jim can just tell you where you're getting it wrong.
No, that's why.
I think it's a fun game.
That's a great idea.
Well, if we go back to the concept art for Disney MGM of the Muppet, the Big Schmear, we can actually see. All right, if you look to the right mid quadrant, you can see the Swedish Chef in balloon form up over what is now Pizza Rizzo. That was going to be the Swedish Chef cooking school restaurant. So, you'd sit in there, it would be quick service, but you'd have monitors overhead where you could see what was going on in the kitchen, and that how the pizza dough had come to life and was attacking the Swedish chef, the like. Mama Melrose, on the other hand, that's kind of a heartbreaker, because that was where the Great Gondo's Pandemonium Pizza Parlor was supposed to be located. And in fact, if you go into Mama Melrose today and look up, you'll notice that the support beams that run along the ceiling are weirdly large. It just, again, don't get me wrong, it's wooden trusses and that sort of thing, and it's attractive, but they had a purpose initially. They were put in because the gimmick was that you were going to periodically see two rats on a handcart go through the room. Somebody would have asked for Parmesan cheese, and it's like, "Got up!" And you would see them carry the Parmesan cheese through the rafters to the table, and then it would magically descend. But this was going to be another fun restaurant. The idea was that it shared a kitchen with the Swedish Chef Cooking School, because every so often the kitchen door would burst open and smoke would fill the room and chicken feathers would fly out. It's like, and then the waiters were supposedly, probably should steer clear of the chicken specialty tonight. No, it had wonderful, wonderful, wonderful ideas, and don't get me wrong, we there's something cool occupying that space now. We've got Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, at least some back of house stuff for that.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a loss. I wish they'd gone forward with it, but at the same time, I wish they'd they'd gone forward with putting the Muppets in Disneyland as well. I would have loved to. I mean, in fact, what's kind of weird is if you saw the Muppets initially at Disney MGM, they had Kermit dressed in like a coat for Bert from the Jolly Holiday scene from Mary Poppins, and they also had Miss Piggy in a kind of a turn of the century dress, and that's because the Muppets were supposed to hang out on Main Street at Disneyland. So
I feel like a lot of this Muppet stuff is coulda, woulda, shoulda.
yeah,
It just makes me really sad.
yeah.
I was expecting more of some of these elements to find their way into Pizza Rizzo when they did that redo in recent years. I knew some of these stories of elements that had been pitched and then didn't happen, or had been developed but didn't come to fruition. And I anticipated with the changeover from Pizza Planet to Rizzo that there would be a bit more kinetic energy in the decor of the location. And so I was surprised when we went to visit, and it was really more of a artistic overlay, themed artwork and signs with jokes and these kinds of things, rather than kind of a rats at work on display.
It's interesting you say that, because this has been a concern of the Muppet Studio folks since Disney officially acquired them back in 2004. Because face it, when they came through the door, it's like, in fact, there was this amazing plan for the relaunch. I remember going to this presentation where was this year-long thing with Kermit where he traveled the world, and they pulled the plug on it the day they launched it. Literally, Steve Whitmire is on Good Morning America. He's sitting down with I'm blanking the newsman who used to be the host of the show, Charlie. Yep. And he's there, but his phone is blowing up because they canceled the program. We're not going to Paris. Kermit's not wearing the bowls at Pampaloma. And what ended up happening is that the Muppets got thrown into eclipse because Disney buys Pixar, Disney buys Marvel, Disney buys Lucasfilm, and suddenly there's only so much bandwidth, there's only so much oxygen, and the fact that the Muppets Most Wanted cost more to make than the original Muppet redo movie and did half the box office. It's like, okay, we're not doing Muppets now. We don't know how to do Muppets. And, so that was the thing when they were going to do Pizza Rizzo. It's like, okay, you're an Imagineering, you're going to the company and we'd like to retheme this restaurant. And it's like, oh, it's built around the Muppet. Here's your bright, shiny dime. it's just like, see what you can do with that. So in a weird sort of way, I know, Kelly and I share the same opinion of Muppets Now, but if you want a better Pizza Rizzo, you got to start watching the show, folks. Disney has to start believing that there's money in Muppets. And, right now, the only thing that's making money for Disney from the Muppets is Muppet Babies. That's a gold mine to them. Yeah. So.
It's very popular in this show.
Jeremiah, this question is actually for you because if I'm not mistaken, you have been to one or two overseas parks?
Yes.
Can you answer
I've
this?
never. He never talks about it.
No. Do you know?
No,
Jim?
there is no Muppets anywhere. I know, Jim, there was plans to take them to Paris at one point. Like the Muppet Vision 3D was supposed to head over that way.
Yep.
But I don't know anything more about that.
No, and the weird thing of it is the Muppets are hugely popular overseas. And for example, Fraggle Rock, that series was shown in 95 markets worldwide. And it was popular around the globe. But of course, the irony is that when Disney finally makes a deal in 2004, they forget to get Fraggle Rock. So it's like, in fact, Dark Crystal wasn't part of that deal. Labyrinth wasn't part of that deal. Disney just got Muppets and Bear in the Big Blue House. But yeah, as far as Japan is concerned, same thing. The Oriental Land Company is like, they've taken them in multiple times at the Muppet Vision 3D, and it's like they sit there very stoically. It's like very amusing. We don't want it. So,
But it's always been funny to me that one of the things I think the Muppets kind of excel at is what you described in the Great Movie Ride, the kind of the poking fun of other movies and this type of thing. And you guys are bad. And as just the Disney company's own catalog has like exploded, right? With Marvel, with Star Wars, with the Fox acquisition, all of these coming under that now Disney umbrella. I feel like the fodder for the Muppets is so much bigger, and yet
like a Muppet's gone.
They haven't really gone in that direction very much, unless it's not crossed my path.
We want a Muppets Die Hard, Jim.
Well,
It's a Christmas movie.
But think about it. We had the Great Moments in History show with the Muppets, and in Liberty Square, and there was for a time when they thought when they thought there was going to be a line to go into Galaxy's
Hall of
Edge,
Presidents.
Batu. At least at the studios, the idea was that next to the restaurant there, they were literally going to do same thing. They were going to have the Muppets come out in the window and entertain the people in line by doing 5 and 10 minute long riffs on A New Hope and Empire, and but again, that only got as far as, okay, here's the possible script. And, but face it, when you're doing something like Blackspire Outpost, where, it's $1 billion project and, you're starting to run over, that's an easy thing to fall off the table. So.
See, Jim, there's so much opportunity for parody. Please, we beg you.
So here, this should be just a 20-second answer for you, Jim. Debbie leaving Muppet Studios. Who leaves their efforts now?
Oh, jeez. I'm sorry. Losing Debbie was a heartbreak. In fact, because we lost Debbie, we lost the project that Josh Gad was working on, Muppets Live Another Day, which I can't tell you how I got to read or learn about the script for that. That was being put together by the guys who did Lost. And it had, all right, I'll tell you one gag from this thing. Okay, it's the movie, the show was supposed to take place directly after the story of Muppets Take Manhattan Ends. And the problem is the show doesn't run on Broadway. And so, it's the scene takes place in Steve Martin's apartment. and Rolf is there with Steve Martin, is talking about, what are we going to do next? And it's like, and Steve puts on the phone, well, I just heard from the studios, and, the effect they just told me the 4 amigos, we're going to have to make some cuts. And it's like, and Rolf goes, oh, well, geez, well, who's going to tell Martin Short?
There you go, Doobie.
That would make me be very happy with that movie. Oh, check what Joe's saying. This is fun.
I thought this was maybe tameless, but still pretty funny.
There we go. Debbie,
Bringing it back to the Muppets.
Yeah.
We had a question earlier I wanted to ask you, Jim, if you don't mind, from one of our favorite guys. He makes logos for us for free, so we got to ask his questions. Is Jim Henson Company or the Muppets, are they at all involved in the Mandalorian, in the Child?
Well, I mean, look, the world of professional puppeteers is relatively small. And let's be honest here, the Muppets aren't doing quite as much work as they used to. So a lot of folks are working as journeymen. But yeah, I mean, I know that there were some folks who did Muppet work who were consulting on The Mandalorian. But again, remember, Mandalorian is this wonderful mix of practical effects and, the amazing projection stuff and after the fact CG. That's in fact one of the reasons they deliberately don't do the same trick twice. So you never, okay. So you go the baby, the child he's a rod puppet. Like, nope, so.
So I know you told you this would be about 20 minutes. Are you okay on time?
I'm good.
One of my favorite Muppet projects is the one whose name isn't coming to mind, Muppet Labs, Muppet Mobile Labs. Can you talk about that a bit?
Oh, the Living Character Initiative.
You smile, Jim.
Like we're bringing Jim.
Well, no, I mean, just the problem is, like, I mean, look, that any of us who watched the Imagineering documentary, and again, given like the way the 5 of us would watch the Imagineering documentary, we're not even looking at what's on the screen. We're looking what's behind, what's under a tarp, and it's like, and that was the thing. At one point, I want to say Joe Rohde is strolling through Imagineering, and there's Beaker and Bunsen under a tarp. It's, I don't know. It was a wonderful idea, but at the same time, it was ridiculously expensive to maintain. Kind of the same thing with Lucky the Dinosaur, even the Remy, at Epcot, which, again, if you remember how limited the animation was, like, wow, yes, okay, I'm so glad I spent $150 on lunch in here, but again, Disney eventually, sort of steered clear of that magic that only happens for an individual. Because again, they were looking for the better. Oh, I love that. Wow.
Have you ever remember
Yes, that is one cat box I do not want to clear out.
Oh, thanks, Jim.
I'm here all week. Keep your way.
So it's just a matter of it was a nice idea. Any idea how such a thing came about? Why they chose the Muppets?
Well, remember, again, we start with Lucky, and and that was the thing. The people were like, "Wow, this is cool," but where do I know this character from? And let's face it, that this is during the same period where you're watching the Walt Disney Company do things like the Country Bear movie, the Pirates of the Caribbean film, The Haunted Mansion. And suddenly it's all about, well, what about our IP? What do we own? And in the case with Muppet Mobile Labs, again, Disney had just, finally gotten the Muppets back after all of these years. In fact, I think this was the last deal Michael Eisner made before he headed out the door. It's like, yes, we own them now. Goodbye. It just, again, and I hate to say this, but also the other issue at that point is the Muppets had been out of the spotlight for so long. I mean, people who are elderly like me, it's like, oh, it's Bunsen and Beaker, but for, your son who does Fortnite, it's like, yes, the thing that moves, it didn't matter. Now that Muppets Now is on, maybe a new generation will connect with these characters, but I don't know.
That's with him yet. Muppet Babies has.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were rolling out the Muppet Mobile Lab at Epcot for the past few years, just randomly, just as a space filler while things were going on, and it would draw a crowd. But you would watch everybody around going, "We don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here?"
Yeah, and but and again, the irony is one of the other reasons that Jim Henson made the deal is that. Disney was so great at keeping characters evergreen. I mean, think about it. The Mickey Mouse, character introduced in 1928. Just this year he gets his own, attraction, and we've got a clone of it being built in California right now. I mean, Mickey is as vital and as vibrant as he's ever been, and so that was. Jim was worried about, will Kermit live on after I'm gone? And it's like, well, I know that, look at what Disney's done with Winnie the Pooh. Look at what Disney's done with Peter Pan. I feel like the Muppets are in good hands if I hand them off to Disney. And it's like, yeah, no.
I think sorry, I blocked it. But I think my favorite thing that the Disney company's done in most recent years is the detective experience that you do when you're on board.
Midship detective.
Yeah.
The balance of humor and the newness of the technology, just it's a different kind of experience. It's not really very similar to anything else you've done before, and yet it has that familiarity of the Muppets. So it's a nice parent and child experience because the newness of the technology can grab them even if they aren't necessarily have an affinity for the Muppets, but mom and dad have an affinity for the Muppets. So now you've got this family adventure and you go around, and I found it to be in recent memory one of the better Disney Muppet collaborations.
Well, the irony here is Imagineering is full of Muppet fans, absolutely teeming. In fact, that I always make the joke these days that there should be like a moratorium. I mean, everybody loves the Haunted Mansion, everybody loves Pirates of the Caribbean, so all of these Imagineers invent things to go into those two rides, and it's like, and there were all of these other attractions that have needed love for decades, but it's like, no, I put a new flag on the pirate ride, and this is the thing with the Muppets. They they're both doing these stuff for the parks, and it's like, and you have to take it to the board and pitch it, and it's just sort of like, all right, so how much did the Muppets earn last week? It's $1.50. That's like,
But it's untapped.
I want that clip of Jim Hill making fun of him on a ride.
Doobie, can I steal the spotlight for a second?
Please.
And go back to the ride or back to the attraction.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I want to hear more about Jim, but when you're talking about Batuu and the changes that were going on out there, one of the changes that has happened is the fountain that's in the front went from being this massive fountain that had all the characters in there, and now it is Piggy and the fish. And I think there may be 2 rats left in there. And that's there's what it looked like a few years ago.
Mm.
And then the next one will be what it looked like, I think, a week and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting to see how the changes took place. And also you can tell that the construction workers weren't plumbers, because when Piggy is going, she is soaking anybody that's sitting around that point. Because coming out of the horns of the crown, it just soaks the entire ground because they shortened the fountain, but they didn't remove the bodies.
You moved the headstones, but you didn't take the. All right.
Just saw that last week.
Okay, there we go.
But one of the other things about that is, when the film opens, it is Kermit presents Muppet Vision 3D, and then outside for many years it was Jim Henson presents Muppet Vision 3D. Now it's just Muppet Vision 3D, and I don't know if I read it from you or if it was something I got. No, I probably just got it from you. They chose to change it to Jim Henson Presents after the death.
Yes, it was. There were a lot of folks who at the company were genuinely torn up, and more to the point, they were trying to also, at that point, win back favor with the Henson family. So it's like, okay, let's shoehorn Jim's name in there. Conversely, because these are now Disney's Muppets rather than Jim Henson's Muppets. That's why his name has basically been stripped off of the property, which, I have a problem with. But again, I grew up watching Jim Henson himself do this stuff. So it's tough to have him be removed from it. But, getting back to the Piggy Fountain, this in a weird sort of way is, think about the time it was done, when the work was done, and it was the lead up to Galaxy's Edge. And in much the same way as Disneyland underwent its Project Stardust, where they got rid of the curbs, they moved planters, just with the notion of we need to clear a path for people to move as quickly as possible into Galaxy's Edge so they can buy $200 lightsabers. In the case of what they did to, in the Muppet Courtyard, the notion was, okay, we're going to have a giant line of people here. They're going to be stretched all the way back to Indiana Jones, and they're going to want something to eat. They're going to want to move in and out very quickly into, the Muppet Courtyard area and get over to Pizza Rizzo. And so it's like, okay, creep in the fountain because we're going to have thousands of people, pushing into this area to get, something to eat. And kind of like they did in Disneyland, they really overthought it. They really overplanned, So.
Well, it's very similar to what happened with Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom. They expected that to be a massive line, and that happened, the first month at the most. But two was, Disneyland. I can remember that first few weeks being out there with the reservation system and it being the best time I've ever been in Disneyland. In California or Disney's Hollywood Studios, there was a couple of days with the line, but like you said, they overplanned it.
So, and now, of course, they long for those days. It's like,
and now everything's being reevaluated to one sense or another. It's hard to know what is in the future.
Since I've got Bill here, this is only tangentially related to the Muppets, in that it's not one bit related to the Muppets. But your thoughts on Star Wars Galaxy's Edge?
Okay. Nancy and I did this, I want to say, this would have been November, December of last year. So I have to preface this by saying I have not done the marquee attraction. I have not done Rise of the Resistance. It's one of these things where it's like, I feel like there was so much thought put into blue and green milk, that so much of it is, it's a bazaar. It's a shopping venue. On the other hand, the notion of getting on board the Millennium Falcon, and it's one of these things where it's like, you have a full-size Millennium Falcon parked out front. You go through this amazing queue. You go through this wonderful pre-show space where you're in that inside of that vehicle, the vehicle you've seen in the movies, and then they hand you those pieces of paper and you go inside and it's like, this is different. And more to the point, it's like, okay, so I hit this button up and down, and I hit this button to decide here, and it's like, wow, it's interactive. It's like, no, it's nobody. This is not the Millennium Falcon ride anybody wanted. All right, this is somebody with a spreadsheet going, okay, how much do we need to spend, and and how many people can we get in an hour, and let's create 6 positions. And let's make 4 people look off to the side so they're not even looking at, and don't get me wrong, Scott Trowbridge and everybody else on paper, this was the right call. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy was the one, so the story goes, who threw herself in front of the bus when they were talking about, well, let's do Tatooine, let's do Hoth, let's do Dagobah. And it's like, no, the future of Star Wars is other places. Let's not go to where we went in the past. And, the hard reality is right now, nobody knows, Black Spire Outpost. I mean, mind you, there's supposedly a wonderful VR game coming that will help with that. Books, there's animation. In 10 years, people may feel differently about this. But right now, if you say Black Spire Outpost to a Star Wars fan, it's like, well, hang on, I have to read 5 books and then I'll get back to you about what it's about. I don't go to a theme park to do homework. I go to get on a ride.
That was a very different choice, right? Because when I think of theme parks, I think it adapt from Grimm fairy tales. They adapted from even Radiator Springs had been around for a decade maybe before it had a land.
Sure. Yep.
So it's a very interesting. I was just trying to think as you were saying this. I was like, wow, is there any other place I can think of where it's built on something that
I can think of one. They built this ride that opened in 1969 as a vehicle for an Eddie Murphy movie that would come out a couple of years later.
Those stories have been around forever. I feel like
I love that Shelley reaction.
I feel like the ghost story is a bit of a different. I mean, you just put it in this particular building,
You
but
may
I
have a
mean,
point.
it looked like any other. If you asked a child to draw the spooky house down the street, it would look like that.
And also remember, if we're talking about Haunted Mansion in California, they built that building sat there from 63 to 69. And,
True.
Everybody stood at the fence like, I want to get in. And so when it finally opened, it's just sort of like, this is exactly what I pictured. Really? The guy hanging at the top there?
Yeah. That's one of the things. We are so single-minded at this point. Like, when people say, oh, well, but this, that, it's like, if you were in a Wayback Machine and jumped back to the opening of Haunted Mansion, walked in there, I don't know if your reaction would be, oh my God, this is absolutely the best thing ever, or what the hell did I just go on? Like, it's, hindsight's 2020, and Disney, the classics are only the classics because that's all we went on for 2 decades.
I know my reaction would have been that Hatbox Ghost will never last. Shelley, you have said almost nothing, Shelley. Speak.
Your mom will be very sad about you not talking, Shelley.
I know my mom is going to write a very strongly worded letter, but I've not said anything. So
I apologize to Shelley's mom.
Shelley,
I'm a conversational pig, so it's not her fault.
No, I mean, the thing that makes me so sad is because I'm such a huge Muppets fan is that you see all this concept art, you see all these ideas, and it's all of this coulda, woulda, shoulda, just like I keep saying. And it's like, I get so emotionally wrapped up in it because it's just like, but we could have. But it's just like, it's what we talked about way early in this discussion is that it's a weird kind of mix that you have to hit with those Muppets for it to just hum. And I'm trying to get through this Muppets Now thing because I know what Jim said is so true. You just have to choke it down, just go for it, because if you don't watch it, they're not going to make more. And I feel like it's so frustrating as a Muppets fan right now because I want it so badly to be so great, but until other people are on the train with me, it's just going to be what it is.
And the other point to remember is that we lost Jim. I mean, again, they cut the deal in September. He's gone by April of 1990. And the weird thing of it is the doctors flat out, it's bacterial pneumonia. It's treatable. But if he'd gone to the hospital 3 days earlier. Who knows? We would have gotten the full 15 years of stuff that he was going to do for Disney, and who knows where the company would be now. It's kind of like, it kills me, for example, to watch Howard, Don Hahn's wonderful new documentary. Cocktail, was invented just a year or so after that, and there's no cure for AIDS, but there is this treatment that allows people, to hang on forever. And for example, Barry Herman, the gentleman who wrote Hello, Dolly, had AIDS for decades, and was able to hang in there and still create. And if you think about what else we could have gotten from Howard Ashman, but again, this is what life is. As you said, the woulda, shoulda, couldas.
Shelley, Muppet project that you can support. It is out there. It is very good. And
I like Muppet Babies.
Okay.
It is pretty spectacular animation. I will say that. They really do an amazing job.
This is my favorite comment so far. If the Muppets are going to continue to parody in YouTube, Muppets Now, they need to start having them mock theme park vloggers.
Uh-oh. Which
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah, they're going to come for you.
Sure.
Shelley, which Muppet needs to be Jeremiah walk in the park? Which one?
Oh.
See, you can think about that. Think about
Miss
that.
Piggy.
No.
No. I think Gonzo.
That's what I was gonna say. I was going Gonzo.
Really? I think Animal.
You think
Animal.
Are you familiar with Big Mean Carl?
Big Mean Carl. That's so good.
My favorite Muppet. He's basically a mouth with horns, and it's like,
I kind of see myself more of a Scooter, but
there we go.
No.
See, there we go. Thank you, Jeff.
I could see that.
It's got two Scooters. Okay.
My nickname in junior high was actually Kermit, because that was when the fad of those ankle boots where they flip down was popular. And my legs were so tiny that I reminded people of Kermit in the cowboy boots when he was facing off with Doc Hopper. So they would call me Kermit.
Very specific reference. I really have. That's great. Wonderful.
That's what they do. They're like, "Oh, you look like Kermit when he was." Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Another question we had out there, Jim. Nope, wrong one. But never mind. I remember it. Well, my question from you: how big is the Muppet for Disney in merchandise? Do they sell a lot of Muppet stuff?
Well, again, only just recently with the introduction of the Muppet Babies line have, they finally been really stepping up to the table. In fact, to be honest, that's one of the reasons why we have Muppets Now. That, it's like, oh, there's money to be made in Muppets again. Okay, so let's see what we can do. The problem is that they went with the most affordable option for this show. And don't get me wrong, there were individual clever bits. I like Pepe's game show. It runs about 5 minutes too long each time. Lifestyle with Miss Piggy, is a fun idea. But yeah, I want to get to season 2 where everybody sort of settled in and they realized that's a terrible bit. This went nowhere. How about we do this with that character?
In other words, you just hate the Swedish Chef segment.
And I love the Swedish Chef. I really do. But it's just sort of to do a real cooking segment with the Swedish Chef is kind of like, it's like, did you try? It's the kid who showed up who didn't do his homework, who tap danced in that meeting. And the Swedish Chef does a cooking segment with a real person. It's like, wow, you put a lot of thought into this, didn't you, Bob?
Because the Muppets were kind of like Little Rascals in a way. I mean, in that it was like the neighborhood kids would get together to put on the show. And so to have them as stars, and I mean, even though it's not polished per se, but it's still not the kids in the backyard putting together the show.
I will say this much, though, in much the same way as I don't want the Imagineers to put anything new into the Haunted Mansion or Pirates of the Caribbean. If I see one more Muppet show that's built on saving the Muppet Theater, I will personally napalm the building. All right? It's like, okay, try saving it now. It's rubble.
I laugh every time I would watch Muppet Vision 3D with Gideon. I would laugh because it ends with the theater exploding, and I would think of you talking about how many times are we going to save the theater?
We here at Laughing Place do not endorse the actions of Jim Hill.
That's for sure. I've been saying that at the bottom of my column.
20 plus years at this point.
Well, Jim, I feel like we have taken up enough of your precious
so
time.
This was fun. Thanks for the invite.
Would you do this again for another attraction?
Sure. I don't know if I could pull together quite so many pointless stories, but if you give me enough lead time.
Tower of Terror.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
How many days you got for that one?
Jeremiah, do you want to give an equally touching outro?
Jim, thank you very much for giving us your time. Your stories made this show. I can almost guarantee that I will go back and watch this show sometime in the future, as opposed to our other ones, which is usually just the four of us making fun of each other. Are we going to spin the wheel? Is Gideon going to come out?
I'm going to let Jim go so he wouldn't have to endure that boredom.
Oh, no, I want to see the wheel. Len Testa actually talks about how there has to be a wheel at Disney for when they name shows. It's got to have magic and wishes and wonder. So this wheel, I got to see.
Now, I do want to. I've been lazy and I haven't covered up any of the rides we've already done, so I may have to spin this more than once. But
this is how we decide what we're doing next.
Ooh, I'm on tenterhooks.
The wheel of bad ideas.
What do we
it
got?
claims we should do Flight of Passage.
Oh!
Flight of Passage.
So we'll see you next week, Jim?
I got to call James Cameron. Maybe he has some stories. I don't know.
Well, we greatly appreciate your time.
Always.
And just seeing your face for the past hour and 3/4 has been the highlight of my... Never mind.
Well, no. I wanted. We talked about this off show. I'm getting old. All right. And the other day I went into the bathroom. It was dark. I was wearing a cream-colored shirt. I had my glasses and a hat, and I looked in the bathroom mirror, and it's like I'm looking at John Hammond. Just sort of welcome to Jurassic Park. So
hold that thought.
Okay.
Do we have a Tony comment coming?
He's going to get evidence of this. Oh, no, you forgot the hat.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's better without the hat.
There you go.
All right, let's see here.
There we go.
See.
Which?
Oh.
He's even got the wonderful hairline. So, hang on. Okay, we got. There we go. All right.
There. Yep. You're right. Yes. You have a career as John Hammond.
When Walt Disney opened, the Pirates of the Caribbean. All right, there we go.
Are you a fan of Jurassic Park, by the way, Jim?
I enjoyed the first one. It's been kind of diminishing returns. In fact, at this point, it's like I have a wonderful idea. Let's open a theme park with dinosaurs. Did you not pay attention to the first 5 movies? So,
right. Well, I was going to kick Jim off first before we said goodbye, but we already spun the wheel, so we can just all say goodbye now. And
Bye now.
Bye now. Thank you so much, Jim. Again, thank you, Jeremiah, for your contributions. Thank you, Shelley, for and then thank you, Shelley. I love.
I'm sorry, Shelley's mom.
Shelley,
my fault.
Anyone. So. I love Shelley there. And thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, Gideon. This has been our biggest show yet. It was so much fun. I need to remind you guys when I close my window, but tomorrow at 4 p.m. we'll be doing Park Talk, which will probably be with the 4 of us again, minus Jim Hill, since
it'll be us.
Our Disneyland guy's on vacation. Tuesday, we've got Disney Trivia Live, 7:30 p.m., as we do every Tuesday and Saturday.
Hosted by Doobie and Gideon.
Hosted by myself and Gideon. That's a ton of fun. At some point, we'll get Jim Hill to do that too. whether he knows it or not.
Mhm.
And I think that's about it. Everybody wave goodbye until I tell you we are officially on.
Bye.